Max Verstappen is flat out down the Hunger Straight with his wing wide open. He turns into Stowe and suddenly the downforce disappears. The same thing happened in Austria a few weeks earlier. Verstappen walked away from both. His own words were, "I was lucky in Austria, I was lucky here." And this was only one of Red Bull's problems. After years of building some of the best cars F1 has ever seen, Red Bull suffered a massive fall off in 2026. The car is unstable, their starts have been terrible, the updates they've been bringing are not working as they should, and they're struggling to understand what went wrong despite having one of the most promising power units on the grid. This is how Red Bull's 2026 season fell apart. The F1 2026 regulations wiped every single progress with the new chassis and power unit regulations and forced everyone to start from zero. And the team the most people expected to struggle was actually Red Bull, because they went into the adventure of building their engine for the first time ever. As we've previously seen with Honda, building an engine from the ground up is a massive task, so the obvious explanation here is that they have less power, and the results seem to back that up. Despite Max Verstappen missing out on the title by 2 points in 2025, he's now 110 points behind the championship leader after 11 races with 0 wins. Except that explanation is wrong. The engine is perfectly fine. The real answer is something Red Bull's own technical director just admitted. We will visit that later in the video. So, let's start with how good is the engine really? They named their engine the DM01, a tribute to the late Dietrich Mateschitz. Their first ever engine developed entirely under Red Bull's own roof, carrying their founder's initials. These new power units are a 50-50 split between the combustion engine and electrical power. But on tracks where the battery drains quickly, the combustion engine has to carry the load. And those are the exact weekends where Red Bull comes alive. On the straights, they've been one of the fastest cars on the grid. And when the new rules brought power cut zones from Miami onwards, sections of the track where the electrical power gets cut off, this helped Red Bull even more. And the FIA made it official. They measured every single engine on the grid and the Red Bull Ford came out on top. In their very first attempt, they beat everyone. But having the best engine comes at a price. This measurement, part of a system called ADUO, the Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities. Basically, the engines that fall behind get upgrade permissions to close the gap. So while Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda and Audi are allowed to improve their engines, Red Bull's engine is frozen. But there's one important detail that makes it extremely hard for Red Bull. The FIA only measures the combustion engine, but the upgrade permissions cover the entire power unit, including the electrical side, where Red Bull is reportedly the one lagging behind. So their rivals get to fix their weaknesses and Red Bull can only watch for now. And Red Bull didn't accept this quietly. They challenged the ruling and made the FIA check their own data again. The FIA did the review and the answer came back the same. Meanwhile, the catching up has already started. Ferrari brought their first engine upgrade to Austria, Audi brought theirs to Barcelona, and Honda's is coming around the summer break. And the combustion engine was not the only thing they got right. The packaging for the engine was as strong as it was fast, allowing advancements in the aero department with it being so tightly packaged. Since the beginning of the season, Red Bull brought 4 different updates to the side pod area, each one being tighter than the last. That packaging is an incredible achievement. It is also exactly where this car's problems begin. But to understand why, you have to rewind first, past the start of the season into the middle of the last one, to a decision that looked completely right at the time. Now, we have to go back to the summer of 2025. Red Bull was in a title fight, and every team on the grid had a decision to make. When do you stop developing the current car and start working on the 2026 one? Development time is limited. Every hour spent on the old car is an hour taken away from the new one. And this time, the stakes were even bigger. These new regulations are here to stay for years, so whatever foundation you build from now, you carry with you. One by one, their rivals gave up on the season and turned their factories towards 2026. Red Bull didn't. They kept bringing updates until the very end of the season, because Max Verstappen still had a chance at the title. And it was so close. He missed out by just 2 points, but that choice had a cost. The 2026 project was exactly the kind that needed the most time. With a brand new engine, active aerodynamics, and a completely new car, and Red Bull gave those months away. It showed from the very first race. Even Lauren Mekies admits that they started the season with a large deficit, and the first half of the season was them trying to close it, update after update, then slowly climbed back towards top 3. And in Austria, they finished just 1.6 seconds behind the winner. For a team that is going through this much change, that recovery is impressive. And it's probably fair to say that if any other driver was in that car, we would have been calling this season a success. But this team doesn't have any other driver. They have Max Verstappen, and that changes the standard completely. But all of this only explains why they started behind. It doesn't explain what's wrong with the car itself, because that problem has nothing to do with time. It was built into the car from day one. So what is actually wrong with this car? In some places, nothing. In slow and medium speed corners, this RB22 is actually better than their previous cars. Curbs have traditionally been a Red Bull weakness. They struggled with them for years, and the new suspension finally solved it. Max Verstappen even qualified second in Monaco, the slowest and the tightest track of the year. The problem starts when the corners get faster and longer. In high-speed corners, the rear of the car can't hold on, and it gets worse the longer the corner goes on. The balance slowly disappears mid-corner and the rear starts sliding. The tires overheat and every problem makes the next one bigger. And fast corners used to be Red Bull's biggest strength. The team that owned high-speed aero for 4 straight years now struggles there the most. Red Bull hasn't explained this, but there's an explanation that fits, and it starts with the side pods. This is where the packaging comes back into the story. Basically, teams have 2 different philosophies with these side pods. Red Bull designed theirs the same way as their previous cars, in a slide shape. The air travels over the side pod and gets channeled towards the rear of the car. It's the same philosophy that won them everything in the last era. And that tight engine packaging is exactly what made this design possible. Their rivals took the opposite approach. They made the side pod as narrow as possible, which opens up space along the edge of the floor. And on these cars, the floor is where the real downforce comes from. Mercedes started using this floor edge philosophy in Canada. Ferrari copied in Spain, and both teams won races with those updates on the car. But Red Bull can't copy it. Their slide-shaped side pod sits in the exact space that this floor development needs. There's simply no room on their floor. And Hungary proved it. The Hungaroring is full of long corners, exactly where Red Bull's problem is at worst. McLaren used to struggle there with similar issues, then they switched to this new floor design, and in Hungary, McLaren won a race. Verstappen's weekend went very differently. The car kept leaning more and more into oversteer. As the stint went on, all of the issues snowballed and the car fell completely out of its working window. McLaren fixed their problem before coming to Hungary. Red Bull couldn't, and the results showed exactly that. So now the question is, will Red Bull redesign this area mid-season or ride it out? Because so far, they haven't touched it. Now, no one from Red Bull has confirmed any of this. It's a reading built from photos and update patterns, but it matches what the car does on track, and nothing else explains it better. And on top of the aero, there's a much simpler problem. The car is heavy. Their power unit came out heavier than everyone else's, so Red Bull started the season over the weight limit, losing crucial lap time in their opening races. With updates, they brought the car down to the limit, but their rivals reportedly stayed under it. Because a car that is under the limit can use ballast. Small weights placed wherever the car needs better balance. Red Bull is exactly at the limit, so they don't have the flexibility of playing with ballast to fine-tune the balance. And that possibly adds to the car's narrow working window. The floor and the diffuser updates keep coming, and the problem is still not solved. Both Verstappen and Hajar have said that they're not happy with how the car drives. And the smallest setup mistakes means the car starts eating its tires, and the narrow working window breaks the entire weekends. When the margin for error is 0, everything else has to go perfectly, and this season almost nothing has. The problem starts on Fridays. Red Bull's practice sessions this season have been a big struggle. Because of that narrow working window, it is extremely hard to find the right setup changes from track to track. Finding the setup takes them the whole Friday, sometimes it goes into Saturday. And then there's the race starts. Red Bull drivers have been losing positions left, right and center during race starts. Max Verstappen alone has lost 11 places at starts, and only Kimi Antonelli has lost more. At Silverstone, Hajar had a public team radio back and forth with his engineer about the race starts. I am doing the clutch warming and the mapping procedures exactly as told, but I already know that after the start you're going to blame me again. His engineer told him to focus on the procedure. His answer, I am focusing, but our starts are completely shocking. You guys need to fix this on the engineering side. Red Bull has since said that they're working on a simpler start procedure. And then there is the infamous wing. You saw the Silverstone moment at the start of the video. Now the full story. Red Bull brought what's called the Macarena wing after seeing Ferrari's innovation. Their interpretation of this was way more aggressive to what Ferrari has done, and so it brought its own problems with it. And in Austria, Verstappen's wing didn't fully close going into a fast corner, causing him to lose control at high speed. The team thought they found the fault and moved on, but in Silverstone it happened again. This time, a different fault. Verstappen said, at that point it is super dangerous, because you can really hurt yourself. I was lucky in Austria, I was lucky here, but that's why you get really fed up with it. For Belgium, they went back to their old rear wing. The whole weekend passed without an issue. Then, after small changes, they went back to their Macarena wing at Hungary. So this season, Red Bull had an aero system that failed twice, a start procedure that keeps losing positions, a setup that resets every Friday, and in Hungary, even car parts breaking over the curbs. All of these problems come from completely different departments. And Red Bull barely had a clean weekend all season. Yet, somehow they keep managing it all and still bringing home results. But why is everything going wrong at the same time? Well, the people who used to catch these mistakes are no longer there. Over the last 3 years, the team that won the 2023 championship had been falling apart name by name. Two of those exits everyone knows about, Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, but the quieter ones hurt just as much. Rob Marshall, at Red Bull for 17 years, joined McLaren as a chief designer. Since then, McLaren won back-to-back constructor titles. Jonathan Wheatley, the team's sporting director and their voice with the FIA since 2006, left around Audi's F1 project, and he has since moved on from there too. Will Courtney, the head of race strategy during their championship years, joined McLaren after 20 years at the team. Lee Stevenson, Verstappen's chief mechanic since 2016, left in 2024. And Paul Monaghan, the chief engineer since the team was founded, moved to Cadillac in June. And the list ends with the name closest to Max Verstappen, Giampiero Lambiase. His race engineer since his very first day at Red Bull is joining McLaren in 2028. After Christian Horner left, Red Bull brought in an outside name to lead the project instead of promoting him within. And reportedly, that's why GP accepted a bigger role at McLaren. And these losses don't show up straight away. At this level, the effect arrives a few years later, which is exactly where Red Bull is right now. Verstappen has reportedly struggled to connect with the people who replaced the old guard. But what did Red Bull actually lose with these names? 20 years inside one team builds experience you can't put on paper, like knowing when to trust your driver over the data. And this season, Red Bull keeps getting that wrong. In Canada, Verstappen told the team their setup direction was not going to work. They ran it anyway, and it didn't work. Verstappen said, I tried something with the car, the team wanted that. I told them, go ahead, but that's clearly not the right direction. I already could have guessed that, but at least we now know that for sure. I tried it a lot of times, and it never works, but they're convinced it does. But it's clear that it doesn't. Then there's the steering rack. This is the story behind the admission we mentioned at the start of the video. From early in the season, Verstappen kept complaining that something was wrong with the steering. The engineers checked the telemetry and the data said everything was normal. So for weeks, nothing changed. Verstappen kept pushing. The engineers kept telling me that they don't see anything on the data, but I am the one driving the car, not the people looking at the telemetry. Then the team finally took the steering rack off of the car and tested it on a rig under extreme conditions. Red Bull's technical director Pierre Vacher admitted what they found. We found that the slight deviation Max was describing was actually there. Max's sensitivity and the feeling for the car go beyond the resolution of our telemetry sensors. He was right, and we relied too heavily on the data. And that's not even the biggest disagreement inside Red Bull right now. The team and their driver don't even agree on what this season actually is. By any normal standard, this season is a recovery story. The best engine of the new era, podium fights in 1 year of rebuild, and the gap shrinking with every update. But Verstappen doesn't accept normal standards. During the summer break, he was asked if this season had been a bumpy ride. His answer, of course, we can be very proud of what we have done, and we certainly are. But we are not there yet. We want more. We want to win and we want to dominate. He finished second in Hungary and said he was shocked to be even on the podium. And this is why his next decision matters so much. Verstappen still hasn't committed his long-term future, and whenever he's asked about it, the answer stays the same. But the waiting is not only about Red Bull. Verstappen has made it very clear that he doesn't like these new regulations either. He's called the new area of racing anti-racing and compared it to playing Mario Kart. So he's actually waiting on two answers at once: whether Red Bull can become the team he wants, and whether Formula 1 stays a sport he wants to race in. The first one Red Bull can fix. They already built the best engine on the grid. But the second one is out of their hands, because the thing pushing Verstappen away is built into the rules themselves. All season, F1 cars have been slowing themselves down in the middle of the straights, at full throttle, and the drivers can't do anything about it. It is called super clipping, and it's the reason why F1 cars are not allowed to be fast anymore. The full story is on your screen right now. Go watch it.